Greetings, Inland Empire, and welcome to another edition of Political Empire, your source for all of the political news happening in Riverside County and San Bernardino counties. I'm Kim Pierceall with the Press Enterprise and PE.com, and while we await a healthcare decision by the Supreme Court, we are going to tell you a little bit about some of the close calls in inland races, also a foreclosure fix that might be on the horizon based on two bills that have been proposed in the state Senate and Assembly. Also, Neil Derry has been ditched again by a supporter who has now sided with his opponent in the San Bernardino County Supervisor's race. A little bit later, we're going to be talking to our Washington, D.C. correspondent Ben Goad about a program that's going to fund more police officers on the streets. Mainly, they're going to hire veterans, so we'll talk to him a little bit about that. Also, we're going to talk to our Riverside County correspondent, Jeff Horseman, who's going to tell us a little bit about how John Tavallone's race for the 41st Congressional District is getting the support of the National Republican Congressional Committee. And then finally, Jim Miller is going to join us from Sacramento to talk to us a little bit about what's going on with the state budget. Quite a bit. So first off, headlines. Close calls. The Riverside County and San Bernardino County election tallies have finally been certified, and as a result, we know how close some of these races really were. In the case of Kevin Jeffries' race with Mike Subaru to get the Riverside County Supervisor seat in the race against Bob Buster, Kevin Jeffries edged out Mike Subaru by just 700 votes. So Kevin Jeffries will be going up against Bob Buster in the November general election. Also, in a one-and-done, sitting judge Craig Reamer narrowly claimed victory over challenger John Henry by just a few thousand votes. So really, it was squeaky tight, 3,031 votes, or essentially 50.76%. 50.76% that Judge Reamer won in his race against John Henry. In a foreclosure fix, there are different parts of twin Assembly and Senate bills in the state that would limit foreclosures while borrowers are trying to modify their loans. So essentially, it's setting penalties for robo-signing of foreclosure documents and requiring lenders to create a single point of contact for borrowers seeking assistance. California has had more than 900,000 foreclosures from 2007 to 2011 during the heart of the economic downturn, and the bills may reach the floor for a vote as early as this week, and we'll keep you posted. Also, Neil Derry, who is a San Bernardino County supervisor, has lost the backing of yet another key financial supporter in his November general election bid. Last week, the San Bernardino County Public Attorneys Association endorsed his opponent, James Ramos, the former San Manuel Tribal chairman. The union had been Derry's largest backer in his June primary, donating $86,000, or a little bit above $86,000. 2 weeks ago, the San Bernardino County Safety Employees Benefit Association also endorsed Ramos. 4 years ago, that group spent almost $400,000 to help Derry get elected. So quite a bit of news going on locally and statewide. We're going to be right back with our correspondent from Washington, D.C., Jeff Horseman from Riverside County, who's going to be in studio, as well as Jim Miller, who's going to be calling us live from Sacramento. Our Washington correspondent Ben Goad has a story in the paper about local police departments getting funding to hire more police officers. Ben, where's this money coming from?
Right. Well, so these are grants administered every year through the Justice Department. They're very popular, not only among the police departments who receive them and the county sheriff's departments that get them, but also among both Democrats and some Republicans in Congress. How they work is the grants pay the salary and benefits of officers for a 3-year period. After that, the recipient agencies they're expected to absorb the cost of those officers into their own budgets. Nationwide, this is going to pay for in the neighborhood of 800 cops. So, there's a new twist this year, and that's that all the new hires must be post 9/11 era veterans. So the service members returning home from Iraq and Afghanistan. This is a group that has an extremely high unemployment rate, so the Obama administration is trying to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. And I think we have a clip of Vice President Biden talking about that to reporters here in Washington this week.
This is a continuation of our effort to do two things: make the streets safer and make sure that returning veterans from the 9/11 generation, Afghanistan and Iraq, don't have to come back and fight as hard for a job as they fought for us. Since we got in office, the President and I have been absolutely committed to helping our our returning veterans, 9/11 guys and women, find jobs and transition back into civilian life. And it's a very simple proposition. As I said already, we don't think if they fought like hell over there, they should have to fight that hard when they come home.
And there are some local cities that are going to receive this money that will go towards hiring veterans for these police forces, correct?
That's right. There's 6 cities in Riverside and San Bernardino counties getting the money. Hemet is getting almost $630,000. Fontana and Rialto are each getting $625,000. And Rancho Cucamonga, Apple Valley, and Yucca Valley are getting $125,000 each. Altogether, the funding is going to pay for 16 officers over the next 3 years. That might not seem like a lot, but in these tough times, the local police chiefs are thrilled to have extra boots on the ground.
Well, Ben, thanks so much for the update on that program, and we'll obviously be hearing from you very soon on other political happenings since there's a lot going on the national scene. Thanks so much, Ben. Riverside County Supervisor John Tavallone and Republican congressional candidate now has gotten a boost this week when a high-ranking official with the National Republican Congressional Committee stopped by Riverside to raise funds for him in his race against Mark Takano. Representative Steve Scalise of Louisiana sat down with reporter Jeff Horseman. Jeff is here today to talk to us a little bit about that interview and Tavallone's race for the 41st Congressional District. Why was it a big deal that Steve Scalise was here in Riverside to raise money for Tavallone?
Well, Kim, what it shows is how important the National Republican Congressional Committee, which is the fundraising and the organizational arm to get congressional Republicans elected, how important they view the 41st race to their overall strategy of retaining and expanding their House majority. Now, it's an interesting district. It's newly redrawn. It doesn't have an incumbent, and it's competitive because the Democrats hold an edge in voter registration, and the district went heavily for Barack Obama in 2008. Yet John Tavallone, who's a Republican, has a lot of name recognition, and from the Board of Supervisors, did very well in the primary, was the top vote getter on June 5th. And so I asked Congressman Scalise about what they're willing to do to help John Tavallone win this district. And here he is.
This race is very important to the NRCC because, number one, we found a candidate in John Tavallone that really put together all the ingredients that we look for. Somebody who's respected in the community. John already is, currently holds elected office and has done a great job there. And not just doing a good job in his office, but he's somebody who's proven he can work with people, both Republicans and Democrats, to get stuff done.
Now, I understand on the other side of things, the Democrats are trying to boost Mark Takano's chances in the race for the 41st Congressional District. What's going on there, Jeff?
Absolutely. Mark Takano, the Riverside Community College District trustee, is the Democratic opposition to Tavallone in this race, and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, which is the NRCC's counterpart, has also sent some heavy guns into the district in recent months. We're talking House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer has been here. So has the DCCC chairman Steve Israel. He's a congressman out of New York. And what's more, Takano has been named as part of this Red to Blue program, which is really focuses on these competitive House races that the Democrats want to capture. And it should also be noted that Tavallone is a member of what the NRCC is calling their Young Guns program, which highlights races again that are very competitive, that have met benchmarks, and that really are the focus of extra attention by the Republicans.
Now, while Scalise's visit was primarily to raise money for Tavallone and to get the word out about his campaign in the 41st, he also talked about quite a few other issues that are going on politically. What else did he have to say?
Well, we chatted a little bit because that particular day, the Supreme Court ruling regarding Citizens, well, not the Citizens United case, but a potential appeal of the Citizens United that the Supreme Court declined to hear, that came up on Tuesday. And so I asked him what impact he thought that might have, because a lot of critics are saying that by not revisiting Citizens United, that just solidifies unlimited corporate influence in campaigns. But he didn't really see it that way, so you can see in the clip.
we're going to assess the results of that ruling. Of course, we're looking to see a final ruling on the president's health care law, and we'll get that later this week. But when you look at this, it's really a broader symptom of, you look at how much money is involved in races. It costs a lot of money to get elected. Whatever the rules are, all candidates on both sides are going to work hard to do whatever needs to be done within the rules to win those races. But if you look at outside money for decades, unions have been active in injecting millions and tens of millions of dollars into races, and really they had a monopoly for a long time. And so I think the Supreme Court's looking at all that and saying there ought to be a level playing field. The rules ought to be the same for everybody. And if one side had an unfair advantage, then now other people can participate as well.
Well, Jeff, thanks so much for that update on what's going on in the 41st Congressional District with Steve Scalise campaigning on behalf of John Tavoloni. And, of course, keep us posted as all of these races unfold.
Will do.
Thanks. From Riverside County to Sacramento, we've got Jim Miller, our Sacramento correspondent, on the line. Jim, how you doing?
Okay, Tim. Thanks
Fantastic.
for having me.
You are literally outside of some of the hearing rooms right now in the state capitol, correct, where they're fleshing out the state budget?
Correct, right. There's the assembly, the full assembly is voting on some of the bills, and meanwhile, over in the Senate, there's a hearing going on in the Senate Budget Committee on one of the so-called trailer bills to the overall package that should be voted on today.
And curious, because there's so much activity today, there's a ton of bills that are being discussed today. I thought the original budget was voted on quite a few months ago, or earlier this month, sorry. What's going on now? What's with the trailer bills? What's going on?
Right, I mean, that's a good point. Under Prop 25, which voters approved back in November of 2010, the budget had to be passed by June 15th. And that's what they did. They passed the main budget bill on June 15th. They did so, though, without any agreement that Governor Jerry Brown, would actually sign it. And he put the word out afterward that he had some problems with the bill. And so negotiations ensued last week, and then late last week they announced that they had, in fact, reached an agreement on various provisions that would ensure the governor's support. And so those legislation to change the original budget bill, as well as a host of related budget bills known as trailer bills, are being acted on today.
And what are some of the key features of these new bills?
Yeah, the deal with the governor, changed. We're still, trying to flesh out the details on some of these, but the deal would affect the Welfare to Work program known as CalWorks. It would impose some limits on how long, some limits below current law on how long people could receive assistance from CalWorks. It also proposes, the changes also propose to move the Healthy Families healthcare program for children into Medi-Cal, which is the state's healthcare program for the poor. Also, and I think we had a story on this in today's paper, there's some changes dealing with school funding and gives schools the option to shrink the school year to 160 days if voters reject the governor's tax increase measure this fall. And then, as I referred to earlier, there's some legislation being debated right now dealing with redevelopment agencies, and it's quite controversial and complex, and it kind of follows up on last year's dissolution of redevelopment agencies.
Well, Jim, it sounds like a lot is going on. There might be some students who are pleased if their school year is shortened a bit based on what happens today. But obviously, you're going to be reporting back to the press enterprise, and your story is going to be in the paper and online, telling folks what's going on with the bills that have been proposed and what's going on with the state budget. Jim, thanks so much for joining us today.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thanks, and have fun in those hearings. And for everyone who is watching Political Empire and who continues to watch Political Empire, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next week with all of your political news.